everyone, welcome back to my channel for a brand new mystery with Molly. If you are new around here, if you've never seen my face before, then hi, my name is Molly and I post true crime videos like this every single week, so if you think that is something that you might want to stick around for, then please do subscribe and don't forget to switch on the little notification bell so that YouTube will notify you every time that I post. But anyway, this week we are going to be talking about the case of Anthony Walker, a teenage boy who was horrifically murdered in a racially motivated attack. If I'm being completely honest, I really struggled to keep it together when researching this case because Anthony's story is very upsetting, but I still really wanted to cover it anyway because I think it is a very important one to talk about and share, and also because I think that the work Anthony's family has done in his name is incredible and I wanted to share it with you. So I'll be talking about that more towards the end of the video. So for today's case, we are going all the way back to the year 2005 in the city of Liverpool in England. And this is Anthony Delano Walker. He was an 18-year-old black British college student and he was born on the 21st of February 1987. Anthony lived in a town called Huyton in Merseyside with his parents G and Steve Walker and also his brother and two sisters. But I believe Anthony had 5 siblings altogether, so he had 4 sisters called Dominique, Donna, Angela and Stephanie, and his brother was called Daniel. The Walker family were of Jamaican descent and according to one source they were actually the first black family to live in the town of Huyton, and sadly the Walker siblings were subjected to a lot of bullying during their time at school. There was a lot of racial name calling towards them. However, despite this, Anthony still grew up to be a popular teenager. He was a devout Christian, he was actually a youth leader at his church, and his friends and family described him as being a very loving and empathetic person. They also said that he had a great sense of humour, he was a lot of fun, and he was also loyal and reliable. He had an excellent work ethic and he was just incredibly caring. Anthony just cared so much about other people. I've got a quote here from Anthony's mother G that I wanted to share with you, and she said, "My Anthony was the epitome of goodness. He was loving, caring, selfless, wise beyond his years. He was even helping me to pay the bills. He got his first job in McDonald's and gave me his first wage packet, about £50. He said we needed to replace the car because it was always breaking down, so we went down to the car dealership and paid a deposit because I wanted him to take responsibility. We got a 7-seater Jeep and I made him think he'd purchased it. He was elated. I put in the rest, of course. He was in training to be a good man." Anthony also loved basketball. Basketball was his favourite sport, and like I previously mentioned, at the time of this case taking place in 2005, he was a college student. He was in his second year of studying for his A-levels, and Anthony's main goal was to go to a university in America after college to study law. His dream career was to be a lawyer, and he was definitely capable of becoming a lawyer. Anthony really just seemed like someone who was going to go places. He was going to do amazing things in his life. He just had such a bright future ahead of him. But in July of 2005, that was all snatched away from 18-year-old Anthony Walker as he was viciously murdered in a completely unprovoked attack. It was Friday the 29th of July 2005 and Anthony had spent the evening with his girlfriend, 17-year-old Louise Thompson, who was also a college student. The two of them had been babysitting Anthony's nephew for most of the evening until around 11 p.m. when they finished babysitting and they left the house. And once they left, they started walking with Anthony's cousin, Marcus Binns, because the two boys said that they would walk Louise to her bus stop, which was near Highton Park pub. However, once they arrived at the bus stop, the three of them were spotted and approached by a stranger, and this stranger was 17-year-old Michael Barton. And as soon as Michael saw them, he began shouting at them. He was shouting racial slurs, and he was just being very, very abusive. He was using really disgusting and vile language. But Anthony, Marcus and Louise didn't react to the abuse. They just ignored Michael Barton and they decided to walk towards a different bus stop to just get away from him. They began walking through a park called McGoldrick Park because it was a shortcut to another bus stop, I believe. But 17-year-old Michael Barton wasn't prepared to just leave it there. He was angered by Anthony and his friends walking away. He felt embarrassed and he told his friend, 20-year-old Paul Taylor, that he had, quote, lost face during the row. Now, some sources say that Paul Taylor was Michael Barton's cousin, whereas others said that they were just friends, so I'm not really sure what's accurate there. But anyway, after Anthony, Marcus and Louise walked away, Michael Barton and Paul Taylor jumped in a car and they decided to follow the trio. They drove to the entrance of McGoldrick Park and hid in the bushes, just waiting for Anthony and his friends to walk by. And once they did, Barton and Taylor ambushed them. They started just shouting and harassing the group, and thankfully Louise and Marcus were able to escape and get away from Taylor and Barton. But unfortunately, the same could not be said for 18-year-old Anthony. He was trapped by the two men. And once Anthony was trapped, 20-year-old Paul Taylor grabbed an ice axe, which I believe belonged to Michael Barton. Taylor grabbed this ice axe and he attacked Anthony Walker with it. He stabbed him in the head with this axe, and Anthony fell to the ground. And Taylor hit Anthony with this axe so hard, with so much force, they actually got stuck in Anthony's head. Michael Barton literally tried to pull it out, but he couldn't. It was embedded 6 centimeters into Anthony's skull, and so the two men just left the weapon behind and they fled the scene, leaving Anthony for dead on the ground. As soon as the two men left, Anthony's cousin Marcus returned to the scene and an ambulance was called. And Anthony was immediately taken to Wiston Hospital in Merseyside before being moved to a different hospital called the Walton Neurologist Centre, and his family were told what had happened. Doctors did everything they could to save Anthony, but even they struggled to remove the ice axe from his head. They did eventually get it out, but like I said, it was literally embedded into his skull, so it was very difficult. Anthony's injuries were just so severe. The blow to his head meant that he was now brain dead. And just hours after he was attacked, at 5:25 a.m. on the 30th of July 2005, 18-year-old Anthony Walker passed away with his family members next to him. So now that Anthony was dead, the Merseyside police immediately jumped into action and they launched a murder investigation. And this horrific crime really shook the city of Liverpool. Anthony's murder was all over the news, and hundreds of people were leaving emotional tributes by the scene where he was attacked. People were leaving handwritten cards, they were leaving flowers and also basketball shirts because, as I said earlier, Anthony loved basketball. The whole community was just outraged, and it was almost like the entire city was grieving the loss of this young man. People were just so devastated for Anthony and the Walker family. This innocent young man that had so much potential had been viciously murdered for no reason. Well, I say for no reason, but this was clearly a racially motivated attack, and people were disgusted, as they should be. Anthony hadn't done anything wrong. He hadn't provoked the two men. He hadn't even really acknowledged them when they were shouting abuse and racial slurs at him. He was just trying to get his girlfriend home safely, and he was killed in one of the most brutal ways I've ever heard. After Anthony's murder, a candlelit walk was held as a tribute to him, to which thousands of people attended, and they also held an anti-racism vigil, and people started to make links between Anthony Walker's murder and the murder of Stephen Lawrence, which happened in 1993. Stephen was another young man that was murdered by a gang of white men in a racially motivated attack, and he was also murdered whilst he was waiting at a bus stop, I believe. However, it took years and years for Stephen and his family to receive justice because the police force investigating his case were corrupt and accused of being institutionally racist themselves. Whereas, like I previously mentioned, the Merseyside police instantly acknowledged that Anthony's murder was a racist attack and they began looking for the killers straight away. Just the day after Anthony passed away, his family made an emotional public appeal in which they pleaded for help from the community to catch whoever had done this. They urged anyone with any information about Anthony's murder to come forward. However, the police soon had an idea about who the killers were. They very quickly received information from witnesses who said that they believed the perpetrators were two men, 20-year-old Paul Taylor and 17-year-old Michael Barton. So now the police had the names of their main suspects. They just had to find them. And the police don't usually do this, but early in the evening on the 1st of August, they appealed to the public and they told them the names of the suspects, Michael Barton and Paul Taylor. The police don't normally do that unless they are certain that they are the guys they're looking for, and so they released their names to the public because they needed the public's help in locating them. And the day after the police named the two men, one of the men's brothers made an appeal directly to them. You see, 17-year-old Michael Barton was actually the brother of famous footballer Joey Barton, and Joey did a television appeal in which he urged his brother to come forward and hand himself into the police. Now, Joey and Michael did have the same parents, however they didn't really grow up together. They were raised in separate homes, and Joey did make sure to distance himself from his brother in the appeal. He made it clear that they weren't close by any means. I've actually got a quote from Joey from the appeal here, and he said, quote, "My side of the Barton family is sickened by this death. Although I was not brought up with Michael, I urge him to come forward." And then he spoke directly to Michael and he said, quote, "You must do this for the Walker family so they can mourn Anthony and because you know it is the right thing to do." According to one source, Joey Barton did actually speak to his brother Michael on the phone shortly after the murder, and he begged his brother to give him about £1,000. Michael's plan was to clearly go on the run, and he needed money to go on the run, but Joey said no and instead told Michael to give himself up to the police. It turns out that Michael Barton and Paul Taylor had actually fled to Amsterdam just hours after the attack, so they clearly were trying to go on the run. They were trying to get away with this. But just days after Joey Barton's appeal, the pair flew back to Liverpool and they were both arrested at the airport for the murder of 18-year-old Anthony Walker. Now, after they were arrested, both men took very different avenues. I don't know if that's the right word, but basically 20-year-old Paul Taylor, who was the one that physically carried out the murder, so he was the one that stabbed Anthony in the head with the ice axe, he actually admitted to his part in the killing and he pleaded guilty, whereas 17-year-old Michael Barton denied his part in the murder. He denied supplying the weapon and starting the whole thing. If you remember from earlier on in the video, he was the one who started shouting racial slurs at Anthony, and he demanded that he and Paul Taylor follow and ambush him. But like I said, he denied his part and he decided to plead not guilty to murder. So his case went to trial. His trial lasted for 2 weeks, and after deliberating for 7.5 hours, the jury came to a verdict. They found Michael Barton guilty of the murder of Anthony Walker, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 17 years and 8 months. His cousin and accomplice, Paul Taylor, was given a longer sentence. He was given life in prison with a minimum of 23 years and 8 months. And after Barton and Taylor were convicted, 3 more people were convicted for helping the 2 killers go on the run to Amsterdam. A man named Robert Williams was convicted for giving the men some money to go on the run and for booking them a hotel room in Amsterdam, and he was sentenced to 2 years and 4 months in prison. Another man named Paul Mawson was convicted because he provided the men with a getaway car, and so for this he was sentenced to 11 months in prison. And then a woman named Tracy Garner was convicted for assisting an offender. I'm not sure exactly what she did, but she obviously did something to help Taylor and Barton flee to Amsterdam after the murder, and so she was sentenced to an 11 months suspended sentence, and she was given 50 hours community service. However, just over 10 years after this crime, in 2016, Michael Barton's sentence was actually reduced because of good behaviour. According to Senior Judge Mr. Justice Mitting, Barton had made, quote, exceptional progress during his time in prison, and that there had been a, quote, remarkable transformation in his outlook and conduct. Apparently, Michael Barton is very remorseful now, and so as a result, his sentence was reduced by 8 months. So before, his sentence was life in prison with a minimum of 17 years and 8 months, and now it is a minimum of 17 years. And of course, this decision deeply hurt Anthony's family. His mother G said, quote, it is a big letdown. I'm very disappointed and I feel deeply betrayed. This decision to cut his minimum sentence does not make any sense and it dishonours Anthony's memory. It is utterly wrong. Now, in the year 2006, after Anthony's murder, the Walker family actually set up the Anthony Walker Foundation in his memory. They did not want Anthony's death to be in vain, because Anthony himself was such a caring and positive person, so they wanted something positive to come out of all of this, and so they set up the Anthony Walker Foundation. The Anthony Walker Foundation works to tackle racism and discrimination. They just want to help make community safer and more inclusive. Their mission is to promote racial harmony and equality through sports, arts and educational services. They provide schools with different activities and learning resources so that they can teach children about bullying and discrimination. They work with people who are victims of hate crimes themselves and they provide them with some support. They do a lot of incredible work and it's all in Anthony's name. So I will leave a link to the Anthony Walker Foundation website in the description box if you want to learn more about what they do. You can also make a donation to the foundation to show your support for the work they do. So if you would like to donate to a really worthy cause, then I will link their Just Giving page in the description box too. I also just thought I would mention a short film that I watched about Anthony's story. It was made by the BBC and I think it was released sometime last year, but I watched it after I finished researching this case, and it's basically about what Anthony Walker's life could have been like if he hadn't been murdered. So it shows him getting married and having a child and starting his dream career, all things that he could have had but were taken away from him. I believe it was made alongside Anthony's mother G, and it is a beautiful film. It is very, very emotional, but I would really recommend you guys go and watch it. It's on BBC iPlayer, so I think that means it's only accessible to people in the UK, so I'm sorry if you're not in the UK, but if you are and you do want to give it a watch, then I will leave a link to that in the description box too. But yeah, that is it for this video. That is the case of 18-year-old Anthony Walker. I can't lie, this has honestly been one of the most difficult cases I have ever researched. I've been making true crime videos for about 2 years now, and I don't tend to get too emotional when I'm researching these cases anymore. Obviously all the cases that I cover are so upsetting, but I'm used to it now, and for the most part I'm kind of able to detach myself from it so that I can get my work done. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to make these videos. But sometimes certain cases just really get to me, and this was definitely one of them. I cried a whole lot when I was researching this case and when I was watching the BBC short film about Anthony's story. I don't know if I said what it was called. Did I say what it was called? The BBC short film is just called Anthony, by the way. I don't think I said that. But yeah, like I was saying, I cried a lot when I was researching this case, and I'm so surprised that I've managed to hold back the tears whilst filming this video. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening to Anthony's story. I hope you consider making a donation to the Anthony Walker Foundation if you are able to. Before I go, I do just want to give a special shout out to the members of my Patreon page. Thank you so much for your support, guys. If anyone else wants to become a member of our little Patreon family, then the link is always in the description box of my videos. Please do give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you again next week for another mystery with Molly. Bye guys!